gang that is terrorizing a wealthy community in Gilbert, Arizona.
Preston was attacked at a party.
A hybrid gang made up of mostly white, upper middle class males.
This is a real gang situation.
They just surround you, beat you up, leave you laying on the ground.
He's stomping on me, kicking me in the face.
And the thing that really stuck in my head the worst was all the footprints on his back.
Somebody needs to step up, by God, and stop this. When you think of a gang, what do you think of? The Crips, the Bloods, the Hells Angels, MS-13? Well, there's a world out there that has a dark underbelly, and it's ruled by these notorious criminal organizations. From the streets of New York to the boulevards of Los Angeles, these gangs have staked out their territories. According to the FBI, there are as many as, get this, 33,000 gangs operating right now in America. Now, most gangs come from poverty, dysfunctional families, and academic failure. Think of how many horrific videos we've seen of thugs attacking people, and it's always just seemingly random. Or footage of flash gangs robbing stores. You've all seen this, right, where they just come racing in. These menaces to our society have even attacked police officers in Times Square. This is happening in any town, USA. Take a look.
In less than a minute, a group of people calmly walk into a beauty supply store, clear shelves of high-end products,
You notice they're blurring these kids' faces. I disagree with that. These young people come together with the belief that they won't be held accountable because they're minors. But tonight, I'm going to talk to you about a new gang that is terrorizing a wealthy community in Gilbert, Arizona. The FBI named Gilbert the second safest city in America with its manicured yards and pricey homes in the millions. But parents of this town say it's under attack by a teen gang called the Gilbert Goons. Now, sadly, last year, 16-year-old Preston Lord was fatally beaten to death outside of a Halloween party. Katie, a mother of four, made it her mission to uncover what happened to Preston, and that's when she discovered this gang syndicate in her own backyard.
The Gilbert Goons are a group of boys who went around town wreaking havoc, drinking and driving to beating people up using brass knuckles. They heavily vaped, used marijuana, cocaine, and fentanyl. They attacked several of my friends' sons. I work in youth mental health and advocacy, so I'm very well connected in the community. They were coming to me asking, like, what do I do? My kid just got his head bludgeoned open. I think after Preston died, everyone was in shock. October 28th of 2023, Preston was attacked at a party by 7 to maybe 15 individuals. Punched him using a hammer punch to the head. They kicked him in the stomach. They stomped on his head.
911 emergency.
Hey, I'm at a party. There's a bunch of people out here with guns and shit. And they just jumped my friend, and he's knocked out on the ground.
Okay.
He's been out unconscious for like 2 minutes. We need people over here.
Okay.
I'm scared.
The crisis that the children were faced with, the horror, the terror, they were screaming because they were afraid. There were many points where we could have intervened as a community, as parents, as law enforcement to stop this, and we didn't.
Well, the sad thing is, this is just an example, because this is happening all over the country. And it turns out the police in this town have classified the Gilbert Goons as a hybrid gang of 20 or more kids made up of mostly white, upper middle class males. Nothing like you think about a typical gang. Now, our News on Merritt Street anchor and former Los Angeles prosecutor Lonnie Coombs knows a thing or two about gangs, having prosecuted many of them in Los Angeles. She traveled to Gilbert, Arizona to see for herself what's going on in this city of 267,000 people. And what she uncovered was a teenage source willing to talk to her. He says he was friends with the Goons. The teen sat down with Lonnie in silhouette for fear of being targeted.
Did you ever see any of the robberies?
Yeah, I saw a few of them. There was this one time where this kid was like walking and they liked his shoes and they ran up to him and was like, give me your shoes or like, I'll kill you. And then like they pulled a gun out on him and then took the shoes.
Did you know them?
I did not know the kid, no.
Okay.
It was a random kid.
Just a random kid?
Yes.
So if they saw something they wanted, they would just go up and
Take it.
take it at gunpoint?
Yes, ma'am. Or threaten to beat you up.
Well, we'll hear more from Lonnie's interview with her source and his mother, but first, Lonnie and I want to find out how Katie uncovered this gang activity on the streets of her own idyllic town. So, Katie, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I really have a problem with what's going on here because I don't like bullies, I don't like gangs, and I don't like parents not paying attention to what's going on with their kids. And this just fits every category for me right down the pipe. Why did you get involved in this?
After Preston died, it was sort of a mystery who did this. The kids knew. There were 200-300 kids at the party, but just as a parent in the community with 4 teenagers, I started asking my own kids around, what's going on. And then social media led me and others to sort of identifying, who might have been involved.
When you started digging in, you found out this wasn't an isolated event.
No, December of 22, one of my friend's sons was bludgeoned with the brass knuckles. So I was aware there were a few boys, but after Preston's death, as I started digging on TikTok, very public TikTok accounts of these boys, the drinking and driving, the beating people up, uploading videos of their blitz attacks. So there's typically 8 to 10 of them. They just surround you, beat you up, leave you laying on the ground. And they were very public about posting it. So just going to their individual accounts, it was all right there.
Okay, and you say they actually have a page called Pound Town.
Correct.
That's for pounding people.
Yeah.
Okay, now, Lonnie, what do you make of this?
Dr. Phil, I'm really, really upset about this situation. As you know, I prosecuted cases for 18 years in LA, and I, dealt with the Bloods and the Crips and Venice 13, and those are what they now call traditional gangs, right? And there was an organization to them, and there was a hierarchy, and they were really coming out of people living in inner city, poor places where it was desperation, right? It was survival to either join a gang or they were forced to join a gang. So when you asked me to go to Gilbert, Arizona to check into this gang, I'm like, Gilbert, Arizona, this is a beautiful, well-to-do area where the kids there have pretty much anything they could want. And there's a gang here, and when I met with this source and I talked in detail with him about the evolution, really, of this gang from more of just a skating group that was into vaping and drinking into very violent acts and serious selling of drugs and guns and the kinds of detail he was giving me, I was shocked and outraged for the parents, for that community that have literally been threatened for years by a very savvy group of kids who use the social media to be able to continue to threaten and harass their victims. And they do things in such a pointed, specific way. And they use the social media as well to buy and sell the drugs. And we're talking about Xanax, fentanyl, cocaine, serious drugs, as well as guns, submachine guns, assault rifles. I mean, these kinds of guns, this is not just a simple group of kids who have been bullying and got out of hand. This is a real gang situation.
Yeah, and they're victimizing people to the point that somebody winds up dead. Next, Lonnie's interview with a teen who says he knows how the Goons operate. He's going to tell us about that when we come back. Have you heard about the so-called silent tax? It could be the biggest threat to your savings in 2025. I'm talking about inflation, out-of-control prices, a shrinking dollar, and less buying power for hardworking people like you. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. What are you going to do to protect what's yours? Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil, that's DRPHIL, to 50505 today. Let's discuss preparedness because we know emergencies happen when we least expect them, but instead of just taking it, we can prepare. Let's discuss Jace Case, one of your most important preparation tools. With Jace Case, you'll have emergency prescription medications on hand right when you need them. Think about it. Ever been caught off guard? Whether it's a sudden illness or a travel hiccup, the right medications can make all the difference. Jace Case is designed to take that worry off your plate. So when a minor health issue pops up, it doesn't turn into a major problem. Don't let unforeseen circumstances derail your plans or your peace of mind. Live with confidence. Take charge with Jace today. Visit jace.com and use code PHIL for a discount on your order and get emergency antibiotics on hand for the moment you need them. That's JASE.com, code PHIL, PHIL.
This attack was in December of 2022. You see some goons starting to surround the victim, and then the brass knuckles typically come out of the hoodie pocket and start to hit his head, along with 4, 5, 6 kids sort of descending on him, much like a lot of their attacks.
Well, that was Katie, who says that she collected almost 20 videos of the Gilbert Goons fighting on the streets of her affluent community. And Lonnie Coombs is a former Los Angeles prosecutor whose job it was to help take down gang activity in LA. The story's not in LA, it's in Arizona. So she headed to Gilbert to talk to a source who happens to be a teen with ties to the Goons. Now, he's in silhouette to protect his identity, and it's interesting that we're talking to a teen here because we tried to talk to other people too. Gilbert PD declined, Gilbert Police Chief declined, former police commander and mayoral candidate declined. One of the victims of the Preston Lord's family declined. Mayoral candidate 2 times, no response. Current Gilbert mayor 4 times, no response. Former Riggs Elementary School principal, no response. 14 goon parents, all no response. Nobody wants to talk about this, but they're eventually going to talk, I will promise you. They're either going to talk in court, they're going to talk to me, they're going to talk to somebody because, well, let's just hear what the one person that was willing to talk had to say, and then we'll talk some more.
Did the members of the Gilbert Goons consider you a member with them?
No, ma'am. They considered me just a friend. Sophomore, junior year, I started skating and drinking and smoking with them.
And how many kids were in the Gilbert Goons?
Like, good 40, 50, 60 kids. It was predominantly white kids, but there were a few people of color in the group. And from like ages 16 to like 23.
Real quick, let me get back into action. Hold on.
Eventually they started getting into fights, and then once they realized they could win the fights because they had numbers, they just started terrorizing everybody. One of the fights was like a brawl. There was like 30 kids versus the whole like 50 goons. I saw guns getting pulled, and then they had brass knuckles, and like a few kids had to get stitches because of them.
Tell me about the guns.
So they would sell any guns, really. They had handguns, ARs, semi-automatic rifles, some machine guns, like whatever you wanted, they would sell to you.
Where were they getting these guns from?
Other people, they'd rob them. They'd just walk up to them and like put a gun to their back and tell them to give them their gun.
Did you think they were ever going to get caught?
Yes, ma'am. They weren't very smart. Like, they used to walk around the parking lot of that fast food place in front of cops, drinking and smoking. Granted, the cops didn't do anything. Either the cops don't care or the cops are, I think, being paid off. They were doing some serious, like, heinous acts in front of these cops. Like, they'd be walking around with their brass knuckles out, and, like, you could see, like, their gun poking out of their shirt, and, like, the cops wouldn't do anything.
Well, the cops have done something here. I'll give them that, because arrests have been made, correct?
Finally.
We've got mugshots of some of these goons. 14 arrests have been made. And do we know what the charges are?
There's a wide range. Some are just assaults because there's a number of different incidents, but the ones that really sort of broke it open was Preston Lord's death. Right. And so there are suspects that are charged in his murder, as well as a lot of other attempted murder or assault cases.
These are the young men charged in Preston Lord's murder, right here. Mm-hmm. That means that there were at least 7 people beating on this one kid, right? And this is their MO. And you've got videos of a lot of this. And a lot of these kids in these videos have not been arrested, right?
Correct.
Why?
There's been some plea deals made, but a lot of, what the police chief continues to say as late as last night is, we didn't know these kids. We didn't know them as a gang. We didn't know them as the goons. When we heard about this after Preston's murder, then we started making arrests. But it did take a solid 2 months, even after Preston died, for them to start making arrests.
All right, so what's the difference between these Gilbert Goons and the typical street gang?
So the original type of gang was highly organized. It was hierarchical, so you had the young people starting up, and you had old gangsters, OGs, who would sort of teach them the code and the rules to follow. They were fighting over territories where they ran their crimes. And a lot of the violence came from if you crossed territories. So it was gang-to-gang violence. These hybrid gangs, it's not organized. You don't have the OGs who are kind of keeping the youngsters in line. So you have all of these young people who take on the characteristics sort of their generation, where they just kind of do whatever they want. They feel entitled. They have just random outbursts. And they're targeting literally innocent bystanders. And another thing they do, which is a new twist here, is that while they're beating them, they'll take a video of it and then they'll post it to shame the victim, or they will send the victim through Snapchat their address or a picture of their beating to threaten them and say, if you talk to anyone, we will do this to you again. We know where you live, you're not safe. Which is one of the reasons why literally they were being terrorized, because they were all afraid to come forward and afraid to talk.
As we go to break, we hear from one of the goons' victims. They beat him up in a parking lot. The teen wanted to speak out, but says he's fearful of retaliation, so we hid his identity. His father says it got so bad, he moved his son to Europe. We'll meet him next.
When I look at the affluence in Arizona, I've worked with many students over my lifetime who have lived in $2 million houses and aren't getting their needs met. And when your needs aren't met, you will go find a crew and a cause to meet your needs and have that sense of belonging. We may have all the things and the boats and the vacations and the money, but is your kid fulfilled? If this is not a wake-up call for our community and every community in America, then I don't know what is.
You could not be more right. If that's not a wake-up call, then we have no right to complain about what happens. Katie says she uncovered a gang terrorizing her town, Gilbert, Arizona. Katie met Rick after his 17-year-old son was viciously attacked in a public parking lot. The teen says the Gilbert Goons were behind his beatdown. Now, Rick's son wanted to tell his story, but he did not want to be identified for fear of retaliation. Here's what he has to say, but he too is in Silhouette.
I was attacked by the Gilbert Goons. I was first targeted like my first week of high school in 11th grade. They were talking smack to me and saying that they were gonna beat me up. They were like, I know where you live. And they were saying where my dad worked, my stepdad worked, my mom worked. They came to my house. My dad was outside walking our dog, and they were like calling out for me. And they took a picture of my car in the garage and they sent it to me and they're like, we're here. And so I was like telling my dad, like, Dad, come inside. They might hurt you. I don't want them to hurt you. And he just told me to stay inside, and he went out, but they all drove off, and he called the police. I went to a fast food restaurant to meet up with my friends. It turns out that some of the goons were there. They just chose to attack me for no reason. Like this silver pickup truck comes up, and they all jump out, and they all surround me. They just like tackle me to the ground. I hit my head on the ground. And they're just like punching me, stomping on me, kicking me in the face, my stomach, my back. So I was just like curled up in a ball. I was like crying, saying like, please stop. So they stopped and they went away, but they took my shoes off my feet. My face hurt the most. The whole inside of my mouth was like bleeding. Like I had cuts everywhere. I had a concussion. I had bruises all over my back. Emotionally, I felt scared. I was just scared that I was gonna lose my life.
You know, coming home and slipping into my Cozy Earth pajamas and crawling into bed with their ridiculously soft sheets has transformed my nights into the most relaxing part of my day, all because of Cozy Earth. The Cozy Earth sheets are breathable, so I sleep cooler, and the fabrics are durable. If you haven't tried Cozy Earth yet, you're missing out on what feels like a 5-star hotel at home. With a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. Luxury is in reach. Visit CozyEarth.com and use my code PHIL for up to 40% off sheets, towels, pajamas, and more. If you get a post-purchase survey, tell them you heard about Cozy Earth from the Dr. Phil podcast. Sanctuary awaits at Cozy Earth. Well, Rick, thank you for being here. What are your emotions about this?
I have a lot of emotions. That's actually the first time that I've seen that video. So I'm very angry. I'm very disappointed. There were so many red flags. I thought I did the right thing, hit all the check boxes to make sure the school knew about it, the police, and this happened, and it should have never happened. I can even remember telling the police officers that night that it happened. I asked them to, calm me down because, I was thinking some pretty traumatic things because that's my son, my only son. So I was angry at myself too because I felt a little naive because, I moved to Gilbert because it was the second safest city. It had the best schools. It's a great place. So I had trusted those stats. I trusted the officials that ran the cities and the police and all that, and they failed miserably.
And this didn't just happen out of the blue. This built up, right?
That's correct. My son has been bullied before, and I moved him from one high school to another school because of that to start fresh. And literally 6 days as a new student in there, I got the first threat, and I went right to the school, and I showed him the Snapchat threat, and I remember telling him specifically, I said, hey, we need to take this seriously because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this is going to happen.
And what was that first Snapchat threat?
It was a picture from a kid he went from with the other school, telling him that he was going to get his, or the boys were going to jump him. And it shows him, on the ground with some guns, putting ammunition in a gun.
And what was their justification for targeting him?
There's no justification. He's a good kid. He's a good athlete. Maybe he had something that these kids were looking for in their life or something that they didn't have in their family or something. I don't know. I know I've talked to Katie about it many times, and there's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah, at one point, they took his shoes, right?
During the assault, yes.
When they jumped him, he had a concussion, he had contusions, he was hit with brass knuckles.
I don't know if they used brass knuckles on him, but his mouth and jaw were really bad, messed up. And the thing that really stuck in my head the worst was all the footprints on his back, on his shirt. And they
were stomping on him?
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it.
Well, do you think this can be stopped, or do you think the city has lost control?
I think a couple of things. I think the city grew very fast, and this has been bubbling up for a while, and it just exploded in their face, and they weren't ready for it. And so I think there's incompetency.
Well, let me tell you, I disagree with you because it can be stopped. And somebody needs to step up, by God, and stop this. You can't turn your city over to 50 thugs that come in and want to take it over and start beating up the kids. And they may beat the rap, but they ain't going to beat the ride. And all these people not returning phone calls, not wanting to talk about this, you need to listen up, because somehow you teach people how to treat you, and you need to make it clear that somebody's going to run this city, and it's not going to be those punks. That needs to be clear. Now, up next, we're going to talk to a former member of a white supremacist gang who says the goons should be feared, and he's going to tell us why next.
I attempted to talk to the parents of the two kids that were initially threatening my kid, but they never reached out to me at all. You know, I went to the school, Gilbert police knew about it, nothing happened at that point. I can't even count how many parents have reached out to me personally. Hey, you know, my son or my daughter was bullied, or I went to the school, and nothing happened. There's a lot of cases like that.
Now, Rick met Eric at one of the council meetings where Eric was speaking from experience about life in a gang. Eric says he joined his first gang to escape his unhealthy home life when he was just 14 years old. Now, as a reformed gang member and a father, Eric says the goons are too young, dumb, and privileged to understand how gang life just leads to a dead end. They don't get it, do they?
They don't. I don't see how they possibly could at their age.
Well, at this point, it's like you're in a boxing match and you're the only one throwing punches. It's a lot of fun. You know, everybody's a heavyweight, but when all of a sudden the price of poker goes up and now you ain't the only one throwing punches, all of a sudden it starts costing you something you value, whether it's your freedom, your money, your dignity, your parents' job, whatever. Everybody has a threshold. And right now, there's not much of a cost being exacted to a lot of these kids. Some of them have been charged. I'm interested to see what's behind these charges, whether or not we've got prosecutors out there that will follow through, or they're going to plead them out, call them minors, give them 6 months in juvie and turn them loose. What's going to happen? But somehow or another, they need to understand this is not a free ride. Don't they need to understand how dark this can get?
Yeah, absolutely. It may be all fun and games now, sitting there flashing guns on Snapchat or whatever and beating people down and getting views out of it. But when you go to prison, people aren't really keen on people jumping on people 2-on-1 or 3-on-1. They're looking at a wake-up call to go in there, just having victimized other people for absolutely no reason. I don't even understand it. I mean, I was completely shocked by what I was, I can't even watch these videos.
Well, you know, I've worked with a lot of gang members in LA, and one of the things they told me is they didn't jump citizens.
No.
They might fight with each other if it's a turf war or who was controlling the drugs in a particular area or whatever, but they didn't sit outside a Home Depot and jump some citizen coming out with his hands full of stuff. They just didn't do that.
It shocks me too.
What do you think's happening here? Even the gangs that I dealt with there, they had a code. They might have had some bad businesses, but they had a code.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what's happening is that everything's being exacerbated by social media. Everybody's trying to get clicks, they're trying to get views, they're trying to get some type of fame out of it, some type of attention. They're not getting some type of attention at home, at school, or wherever it is that you're supposed to be getting attention from as a child. And it's just amazing.
I want to point out how extremely violent it is. I mean, these beatdowns, they get this random, unsuspecting victim on the ground, totally helpless, and then they stomp on him. And they go for the head most of the time because they know that's where it does the most damage. It's also most deadly. And when you add in brass knuckles to the head, you have a very good chance of killing someone. And that's what they're targeting. So they may be chaotic and random, but they seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're trying to kill. They're trying to kill by putting boots to their head or by stomping them. So
what do you think about when you hear you see these footprints all over your son's shirt and back and all of that. How do you just not explode?
Well, it was hard not to. What's so disturbing about all this is when I grew up, we'd just be one-on-one and, duke it out. And if it got too bad, your friends would pull you off. And heck, by the end of the fight, you guys were shaking hands. Mm-hmm. But what's changed over all that time and these kids, several of them with so much hate and anger inside of their heart, something's not right, that they want to go in there. And these kids would put ski masks on and brass knuckles. They knew what they were doing. They would take drugs. They had guns with them in their car. And most of the kids that I've seen in the videos they picked, they were good kids. They were innocent prey. And that's who they would attack. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. Every day I see videos of teen beatings all across the country. That's why I'm here, because we need to fix it, because it's a major issue. And it's just so disturbing. And for me to have gone through it, I'm probably still in shock from it. I just can't believe that happened, and especially where, in a place where we live, so.
Well, coming up, these goons use brass knuckles on their victims. As Lonnie says, they go for the head. They're posting this stuff. You got to be really stupid to commit a crime, video yourself, and then publish it. But we're going to talk about using a deadly weapon and then posting it up for everybody to see next.
So it sounds like Gilbert Goons didn't really take it seriously, the violence.
No, ma'am. They laughed at it.
They laughed at it. And if they hit somebody and they're down on the ground bleeding from the brass knuckles, they just didn't think that really mattered. It wasn't serious.
No, ma'am. They'd continue hitting them or stomping on them or kicking them once they were on the ground.
I want to take a look at this other video that we looked at for a minute where they had this young man down and they're all running up to take a look at it. Okay, you see this frenzy here? There are like 8 or 9 people in this video. Every one of these individuals can be identified, right? Every one of these kids and every one of their parents should absolutely be hauled down to the police department and charged. And when you hear this with the sound on, the kids running are saying, let me get into the action, let me get into the action, let me get into the action. Yeah, you're gonna get into the action. You're gonna be first in line, Jack. Mm-hmm. Every one of them and every one of their parents should be down there. Now, if your kid goes out and does something stupid out of the blue and you don't know anything about it, you shouldn't be involved. You shouldn't be responsible. But if you know it, if they're publishing this stuff and they're famous on the app for assaulting people with a deadly weapon, it's your job to know. And you should be involved. You should be charged. You should be held accountable for it. It's your job to know. I want to show you how damaging this weapon they're using can be. Nate from our staff here is going to help us out. This is a very really sedate form of brass knuckles. A lot of times they're jagged with diamonds and stuff on the end. We got these legally through the police. Those are weapons, okay? Now, this is just a watermelon. Can you attack that watermelon for me? Now, take that times 10 or 12 people pounding on some kid. And you can see in the screens, if that was your face, it wouldn't do too well. Let's get a fresh one and put these brass knuckles on and do the same thing. Okay. That's the difference. Because it's a weapon. It's brass and it cuts right through it. Give me those. Nate, thank you. You see the difference. This is not some kids just out being kids. We saw a young man lose his life for this. And Gilbert, Arizona, you ought to be having a town hall meeting tonight. I do a lot of work with NYPD. One of those videos you saw was where a bunch of illegal immigrants that had been bussed into New York City jumped a police officer, had him on the ground, stomping and kicking him. And I can tell you the NYPD, they got 17,500 officers on the street there. That's a gang you don't want to mess with. And Gilbert, Arizona, you need to make sure you have control of your town. Rick has something to say to his community, and we're going to find out what it is when we come back. Your son has been victimized terribly. I know it's painful. What do you want to say?
I always told my son this. I said the most important thing a parent can do for their children, it's not giving them material things, it's not money, it's not vacations, it's your time. We have to get involved. We need to know who they're hanging out with, know who they're talking to. To your point, I remember telling Katie, I said, you know, we can't let thugs, 15-year-old thugs, run this town. That's unacceptable. We're the adults in the room, and we need to make sure that we're being involved. We need to attend meetings in our town halls and our school board meetings and make sure we know what's going on, because we get so absorbed and so busy with life and our own things that we forget those things. And that's, I feel, what's happened, especially with COVID and that part of it, that we just kind of got away from that. And these kids were looking for something or somewhere, and they found it on social media or something like that. So that's just really what I think we need to do to fix this. And if I'm a small voice that can advocate for it, then that's what I want to do.
Well, you're not just a small voice, and I'm glad you're here, because this is getting out of hand. This has become widespread. Here's a map of what's happened, and this is just in a reasonably short period of time. 18 attacks, 95 assaults. It's led to 29 arrests. There's been a death. And this is just what's reported. It's just a reign of terror across this city. And if you think about how many haven't been reported, then you think, my Lord, what's going on? I'm going to give you my final thoughts when we come back. I want to focus on two different parties to this thing, and we're using Gilbert as the example right now. But who I want to talk to are the kids that are involved in this. And if you're watching this on the Merritt Street channel, or you're watching us on the internet, let me speak to you if you're one of the kids in these gangs. You got a choice to make. You have an opportunity to opt out right now. If you're a Gilbert Goon, you need to get as far away from this as you possibly can. You need to find integrity, and you need to get out of this. Any idiot can be a follower. Any coward, punk, thug can be one of 12 stomping a defenseless kid in a parking lot somewhere. That doesn't make you a big man. It makes you an absolute gutless coward, and you are a gutless coward. Man up and get out of that kind of thing while you can. And parents, maybe you're so asleep at the switch, you don't know what your son is doing. Find out. Be shocked. Be shocked and find out that your son is part of a gang. Find out they're one of the Gilbert Goons. It's your job to know. And whatever you have to do to get them out of that, if it's get out of town, get out of town. If you have to go live like the Swiss Family Robinson to save your boy, do it. Whatever you have to do, because they're going to wind up getting indicted for murder. 7 already have been. The others, let me tell you, if they get caught with guns and drugs during the commission of a crime, bad thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Bad thing, prosecutor, right?
Absolutely.
This is your chance to save them And you need to do it now because the heat is on. And the Gilbert Police Department apparently has turned their attention to this. Some people have been arrested. Others are being investigated. And trust me, I have a big platform and a bright light. And a lot of people are going to be paying very close attention to this. Very close attention to this. And I'm like a bad rash. I don't go away.
I want to say one thing, that a lot of people don't think that there's a way out. Don't let your fear override that decision, because in the end, you can be an old man and you're going to want out anyway. I wish I would have got out many years before I got out, and so many things would have been different.
Yeah. So parents, sometimes we have to parent, sometimes we have to reparent.
Yeah.
It's never too late. And if you haven't done what you need to do until now, do it now. Do it now. Save your kid now. Don't let this continue, because it's getting ready to get real hot in Gilbert, Arizona. I want to thank Lonnie Coombs and all of our guests tonight. Special thanks to you. Thank you. Thank you for caring.
Thank you.
And getting all over this. Stay all over it, will you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks to you at home for finding us here on Merritt Street Media. You can see from what you're watching tonight why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. I talk about this in my new book, We've Got Issues, how you can stand strong for America's soul and sanity. You've made it the #1 book in America. If you don't have a copy, get one. Get two. Give one to your friend. There's so much going on here right now, a new book, a new network, a new season of Dr. Phil in Primetime. To keep up with it all, just text us at 59627. Simply type PHIL, and we will keep you posted on what we're doing, because we're working on the things that you tell us are important. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks.